So dialogue, arguably, I would say is one of the top 5 skills that you can really get better at very quickly. Let's do a little guessing game here. Let's pretend you went over to the shelf of books and you pulled off a novel from the shelf. What would be your guess? Just take a wild guess. What percentage of that novel would you say is characters talking? It's dialogue. What do you think? Take a wild guess. Shout it out. 85. What else? 70. What else? 50. 40, 65. Here's the answer. I don't actually know, but it definitely depends on the novel, right? But that's part of why we do this. If that much of creative writing is dialogue, if we're writing stories and like 70% is characters talking, let's make sure we're really good at that skill if it's so much of stories, right? So I know that you guys probably have done similar things either in my 6th grade creative writing or like maybe in an ELA class, but I have discovered that even for 7th and 8th graders, and even for kids who had my class, and even for kids who have done this in an ELA class, I would say usually still 80% of one of my classes is still getting a lot of the details wrong. And so that's why the more you practice it, the better you get. But I'm going to start with talking really quick about jargon, just because in the grand scheme of dialogue, jargon is something that I use all the time. And I really do think that it can make your dialogue better, okay? So make sure this is the only thing on your screen, and then the screen's facing me, okay? And then Sydney, just make sure, you don't have music playing, right? Sydney, will you pop out your, yeah. Okay. So jargon is kind of a weird one, but even though it's kind of weird, I use it a lot, okay? So everybody say it for me, jargon. Jargon, yeah. So this is when you've got a really specific group, Holly, screen facing me, or a really specific profession that has vocabulary for their group or profession. Sydney, screen facing me. So one way of knowing that it's jargon and not something else is if normal people, just normal everyday us, can't understand that vocabulary, that means it means it's probably jargon. Most groups have this. So, for example, I started thinking of different professions. And I just started trying to think, okay, if I was a brain surgeon, if I had a character in my story who was a brain surgeon, what's a fancy word I could have them use or a fancy piece of jargon that makes them seem more believable? And somewhere in the back of my head, I remembered the word medulla oblongata is a part of your brain. I think it's the part that connects your brain stem to your spinal cord, if I remember correctly. But as a creative writer, I might have to go do some Googling. If I'm trying to make my brain surgeon character seem really believable, then I might go and look up brain surgeon jargon, right? Same with, you guys don't know this, but teachers actually use a lot of jargon. So that's part of the 5 years of college that it takes to become a teacher. We have this thing called the ZPD, which is called the Zone of Proximal Development. Have any of you ever heard of that before? No, right. That's because it's teacher jargon. Why would you need to know that? But the Zone of Proximal Development is a strategy that we try and use where we're trying to make things tough enough that you get better, but not so tough that it's impossible. You've got this zone of the perfect how to get better faster, right? When I was in high school and college, I had the weirdest job ever that I did not need to have. I worked at a wedding dress shop for like 6 years. And we had lots of jargon because it was almost like the rocket science of the clothing world. Normal shirts and pants are no big deal. Wedding dresses are insane how specific it gets. So we had this thing called the H to H, which is hollow to hem. And so when I would get a really, really short bride or a really, really tall bride, we would do custom measurements. And you would measure right here on your, the base of your throat. That's your hollow. And we would measure from that to where we wanted the dress to hit the floor. And then you could get your dress custom made from the H to H, right? Lawyers, my brother-in-law is a lawyer. So they've got tons of lawyery kinds of jargon, right? Let's say you were a creative writer on one of those lawyer TV shows in Hollywood. Oh my gosh, you would have to start getting used to a lot of the lawyer jargon, right? Like litigation or objection or I have a plea deal, right? So again, the whole point of me teaching you this today is I'm saying it's a time where I do research as a creative writer. I often have to stop whatever story I'm writing, go Google a little bit of jargon, and then I put that jargon into my story to make it seem believable. And guess what? This is a real life skill. The next time you're in a place where you're nervous and you don't feel like you belong, go Google the jargon before you get there, for real. Because jargon can make someone seem like they know what they're talking about, even if they're totally faking it. So if you have a job interview you're really nervous for, or if you're about to meet somebody who's really intimidating and you don't know a lot about whoever they are, go do a little bit of Googling beforehand, look up some of their jargon, and you'll instantly make yourself seem more confident and more like you know what you're talking about. So I've got a quick little video, and then we're going to move on to today's actual assignment. This is called Technical Jargon Overload.
Here at Rockwell Automation's World Headquarters, research has been proceeding to develop a line of automation products that establishes new standards for quality, technological leadership, and operating excellence. With customer success as our primary focus, work has been proceeding on the crudely conceived idea of an instrument that would not only provide inverse reactive current for use in unilateral...
Yes or no? Yes or no? Does this guy seem like he knows what he's talking about? Yeah, I would say probably mostly yes. What are some of the things that makes him seem like he knows what he's talking about? Jasper? Big words. What else? I don't think that's the only thing. What else are we seeing that makes him seem like he knows what he's talking about? Ollie? He's very serious. What else? What's he wearing? What is he standing in front of? Official looking machines, right? All of that together, right? So I'm not saying jargon is the only thing that's going to make your dialogue better, but a piece of it, and well, let's watch a tiny bit more.
Detractors, but would also be capable of automatically synchronizing cardinal gram meters.
Cardinal gram meters. Ooh.
Such an instrument comprised of Dodge gears and bearings.
Oh, very official. We have props.
Controls and all monitored.
So none of this is real at all. This is 100% made up. But just because of the technical jargon, it instantly takes a fake thing and makes it seem real. Oh my gosh, that's exactly what we do in creative writing. We take something fake and make it seem real, right?
Software is Rockwell Automation's retro encabulator.
A retro encabulator?
The only new principle involved is that instead of power being generated by the relative motion of conductors and fluxes, it's produced by the modal interaction of magneto-reluctance.
Okay, well, if there's chords and buttons, it must be real, right? Obviously, and not at all. Okay, so before I let you turn screens facing you, so screens facing forward still, except for, you know, my couple of Debate 2 kiddos, that's Jake and Brooks, yeah. So, I'm gonna have you watch this little video. This is gonna, hopefully, you might remember a little bit of this from 6th grade creative writing, but let's be honest, you probably forgot, like, I would guess 60% of this information. If you watch really carefully, not only will it help you on today's assignment, it will help you on tomorrow's assignment, and then it will help you on like 2 or 3 more future assignments we'll do in 4th quarter. So it is in your best interest to really focus, okay? Here we go.
Word of the day is dialogue. So dialogue is when characters speak in a story. We put it in quotation marks, and that way the reader knows who's talking. So I have had some creative writers make the mistake that they won't put a quotation mark at the beginning and at the end of what they say, just like in this example right here. So make sure that's the reader's cue. This is where the character is starting to speak. Here's where they're finished speaking. So that's the most basic thing. Most kids who get to my class, they can at least do that. But there's a lot of other information, and this project is a lot of points. So make sure you're paying close attention here. So there's a couple of rules of dialogue. We're gonna look at this little example over here.
I know this is a review, but stick with me.
First rule. Obviously, always put the character's words, what they're saying out loud, put that in quotation marks. If it's not something they're saying out loud, it doesn't have to go in quotation marks. The second rule is punctuation that goes with the character's words always goes inside the quotation marks. You'll see a lot of kids, like on this example, a lot of kids will put that period or that question mark, they'll put it outside the quotation mark. That's incorrect. It goes inside the quotation mark.
Keep watching carefully.
Quote, capital letter, I wish I could dance as well as quotes. Period inside that ending quotation mark. So let's come check here next. So the second rule is dialogue tags. You have to use them so the reader knows who's saying what. So let's look back here. The dialogue tag is who's saying it. Just because it's obvious to you, the writer, who's saying it does not mean that it's clear
to the
to the reader.
So
So always use it.
It might
It might be something like said,
blah
blah, 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 but you can also
put a
lot of personality there, right? Shouted, whoever, or Bob quietly whispered, right? It doesn't always need to be said.
Keep focusing.
But this dialogue tag is really helpful for the reader.
So
you can have it come wherever you want it. It could come at the beginning, it could come smack dab in the middle of the dialogue, it could come at the end. But the quote, the dialogue, and the tag need to stay together. Think of them, they're dating. We don't want to split them up. They want to stay together. So don't put them on separate lines unless like Google Docs is trying to force you to. Those need to stay together. But here's a exactly correct formatted example. Quote, a capital letter, I wish I could have as long as coats. Comma, we're going to talk about that in a second. Inside the quotation mark, lowercase s here, because the sentence already started right there. The sentence isn't done until this dialogue tag is finished. So this is a lowercase s. The only reason it would be a capital is if the dialogue tag came before the quotation mark. So
I know this is not the most exciting information, but all of these little things, for real, we will have probably at least 5 future assignments where you're practicing this stuff. So do yourself the favor, keep forcing yourself to focus, because I do expect that you can do all these little details, and there's a lot of them. Keep going.
Lowercase s said everything ever, and notice how that is sticking with the dialogue. Okay? The next rule is you're going to separate dialogue and taglines with a comma. Really important. I know tons of adults who don't even do that. So this is our signal to the reader. Hey, reader, I'm not done with the sentence yet. So unless it actually is the end of the whole sentence, you're going to be separating the dialogue and the dialogue tag with commas. So on this example, this dialogue tag came right in the middle, which is great. So we've got quote, capital letter at the beginning of the sentence, you know what? Comma, because the sentence isn't over yet. End quote, because this is the end of this character talking out loud for right now. Lowercase s, because this quote already started over here, said Obama. I'm putting another comma, because I'm telling the reader, hey, reader, I'm not done yet. Quote. Now this I would not need to be capitalized, except it's a proper noun, right? So in this case it's capital, but if it wasn't a proper noun, my sentence would be starting over here. This could totally be a lowercase if it wasn't I. I think I need to give Mrs. Ghost a medal for napping so well. Period. Now it's a period. My sentence is actually over. It's inside the quotation mark. Okay, let me check back on here, make sure we're not missing anything.
Stick with me, guys. Let me give you all a coin for actually focusing.
The commas, that is a really common mistake. The commas do replace periods if the sentence isn't over. Lots of kids will put a period here and not a comma. Don't make that mistake. That's a really big one. Okay? And then the next one is it doesn't matter if you're handwriting or you're typing. But every single time it switches between characters speaking, you're gonna start a new line and end it. You'll get a lot of kids who will start a new line like this, but they'll forget to end it. So if you're typing, you just press the tab key. A lot of times, though, pay attention. A lot of times Microsoft Word will automatically end it for you. But you're gonna start a new line and end it every single time it switches between characters talking. Even like let's say that like this character only said one word, doesn't matter. You still start a new line and you end it. So this is a perfectly formatted example. So let's look at some of the little details here because you're going to be doing this yourself. So we've got the beginning of the story, so we will end this once upon a time. Former President Obama and his wife walked into Albion together. Now, dialogue is about to happen. So this is where I start a new line. I have new line, indent, capital letter, because it's the beginning of my sentence. This is the comma, because I separate the tag and the dialogue with a comma. Quote. Now, this is a weird situation. This one is capitalized, because I want you to think of dialogue as a sentence within a sentence. So because this is the beginning of the dialogue sentence, this is capitalized. Capital D, do you ever dab? question mark inside the quotation mark.
Stick with me,
And
almost
in that
there.
case, it's not a comma, right? Because this is the end of my sentence, so I can just do the ending punctuation there. Now another character is about to speak, so I start a new line, indent, quote, capital S, sometimes comma, because the sentence isn't over, quote, lowercase s, because my sentence already started over here, and it's not the beginning of the dialogue. Said Obama, comma, because I'm not done yet, quote. Now this could not be a capital letter if it wasn't I. I dab with Michelle, his wife, says it will be now a period. Now the sentence is over, and that period is inside the quotation mark. And last piece, so we're starting a new...
And this one's weird.
piece of dialogue, so it's a new line. So enter, tab, quote, capital letter. Let's see what you've got then. This is a special circumstance also. See how there's kind of double punctuation here? That's okay. It should never be a period if the dialogue tag is after like this. But if it's important that it's an exclamation mark or a question mark, then it could replace the comma. But I cannot tell you how many times I've seen kids, they'll do a comma and an exclamation point, or they'll do a comma and a question mark. That's completely incorrect. In this situation, it replaces the comma, quote. Now, remember, this normally would stay on the same line. It's just in this little box, it made me separate the dialogue tag and the dialogue. But normally those two things stay together. They stay on the same line, right? Because they're dating. But in this case, it made it go down onto the next line. Lowercase c, because the sentence already started over there. Challenge Mrs. Coates, and now the sentence is over. So that's a lot. That's a lot to have to practice. But the good news is none of that.
Questions? Because you're about to try it in just a second. Questions. Okay, so everybody take a couple of steps with me. I'm going to have you turn in Jargon in just a second, but everybody get here, okay? I'm going to have you take like 3 steps, and then I'm about to set you loose. So number 1, you can open up the second link right here. This has a bunch of examples. I just pulled random novels off the shelf. I had a kid question me one year. He was like, Mrs. Coates, I don't think you're doing it right. And I was like, are you sure you want to say that to a teacher who's been teaching for forever and is also a reader and also a writer? And he was like, yeah. And so then I just pulled a bunch of books off the shelf and proved to him that obviously what I'm teaching you is 100% correct. So these, again, like I started out today with, everything we're doing, right? It's meant to actually help get you to the level of you're doing all these little things right. So as you can see, lots and lots of novels are dialogue, and I want you to have that skill. Okay, so that's the first thing. Second thing, if you go back to this assignment, if you go to step 2, if you actually take the step, it really does help you with our future 5 assignments that we'll do for dialogue. If it were me, I would save this cheat sheet to my drive, and you just click this triple dot at the top and say organize. And if you already have a creative writing folder, great. If not, you could make one. You could also make a dialogue folder, and that could be helpful too. But if it were me, I would save this to my Google Drive because it's a cheat sheet full of really helpful stuff. This will help you not only on today's assignment, but also on future assignments. And then step 3 says access assignment here, but I do want to make a big deal out of this really quick. So it says, note, there are right and wrong answers, which is different. Often in creative writing, you just get the points as long as you tried, right? Today's is different. This gets graded with an answer key. So you will get things wrong if you're not paying attention to detail. So you can redo this assignment if you get some of it wrong, but the assignment is actually right here. So I've had some kids say, oh, you know what? I think we did something in ELA that looks similar. Great. But just because you did it already doesn't mean you can actually remember all the little details. It's a really helpful review. So there's lots of little instructions. You would type your name here. Basically, if you actually read instructions and you actually pay attention to detail, you'll get full points, probably. But most kids, they'll see the instructions and they'll be like, yeah, I'm not reading that. And then they just skip. And then they're doing things wrong. So shocking that reading instructions will actually help you. So I want to point out just a couple of really quick things. It gives you examples, and then you actually do that thing. So if you skip the examples, you're going to do it wrong. actually read the examples, okay? And then it tells you exactly what to do. On this one, you would be highlighting specific parts of the sentence, okay? And then, same on this one, you're highlighting specific parts. This one, you have to type in answers. There are hints. It tells you where to get the right answer. Pay attention to the hint. This gives you the example of what to do on the next slide. So if you skip the example, you're going to be really confused. Same, this gives you examples and instructions. It tells you exactly what to do. Example and instructions, it tells you exactly what to do. This is the one I would say 50% of the class will do wrong because you've tuned me out, and I kind of don't blame you because it's been a lot today. On this one, you're adding missing punctuation. You're not changing anything else about the sentence. You're adding the punctuation that is missing to those 3 highlighted parts. So again, if you do any of this wrong, not only will it affect you in the future, but you will also have to redo the stuff you got wrong. So actually pay attention to the instructions and